All right, good afternoon. It is the 2nd of June, 2023. I'm Texas Storm Chasers Baldy-in-Chief David Reimer. We now begin our severe weather coverage. We're starting off pretty early today for a summertime severe weather setup, but Mother Nature's going to do what Mother Nature's going to do, and apparently that is to start things off during the late morning and early afternoon. We have two tornado watches in effect. Those are these yellow blinking boxes of doom. Both tornado watches go through 8 p.m. this evening for the Texas Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Guadalupe Mountains, the lower Trans-Pecos, western sections of the Concho Valley, into western sections of the Big Country. What we have unfolding now, scattered to numerous thunderstorms are quickly developing across western portions of the Texas Panhandle, western portions of West Texas, the western Permian Basin, south into areas just east of the Trans-Pecos. The most intense storms thus far are now capable of producing tornadoes, baseball-sized hail, wind gusts over 70 miles an hour. We're expecting a busy afternoon and evening with the threat for flooding also a significant concern. So with that being said, what we're going to be doing today is focusing on the most intense storms as they occur. We're going to have a lot of storms to talk about today, but we're going to be focusing on this live coverage on the most intense life-threatening storms. So if I'm not talking about a storm near you, that's probably a good thing, but as always, you're going to be able to keep an eye on the sky with the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app and the interactive weather radar in our mobile app, along with on our website. You can also watch our live coverage in our app and on our website for what it's worth as well. All right, so with that being said, let's get to it. We have two tornado warnings currently in effect for portions of Texas. We're going to go from south to north because that's what I want to do. This is going to be a tornado warning currently in effect for areas just northeast of the city of Fort Stockton. This tornado warning does not include the city of Fort Stockton. This is going to be a possible tornado about 12 miles southwest of Baldridge, moving east at about 35 miles an hour. This thunderstorm, in addition to capable of producing a tornado, is also capable of producing tennis ball size hail, thank you Jason, damaging straight line winds over 70 miles an hour, and a tornado. We have an additional thunderstorm now popping up to just north of Fort Stockton, and we'll have to keep an eye on that storm as well, as that may become the dominant supercell here and possibly pose a threat of a tornado as it moves off to the east at about 35 miles an hour. With time, if these storms become more organized in the southern Permian Basin, these thunderstorms may begin to move more to the southeast. All right, let's go north. We have a tornado warning currently now in effect. This is going to be a tornado warning for western Gaines County in West Texas. This tornado warning does include the city of Seminole in West Texas. We'll go ahead and just read the warning text at 1:22 p.m. Central Time or 12:22 p.m. Mountain Time. A confirmed tornado is located near Nadine, or 9 miles southeast of Hobbs, New Mexico. This thunderstorm is moving east at 35 miles an hour. This thunderstorm is capable of producing baseball-sized hail, straight-line winds of 70 miles an hour, and again, a report of a tornado about 15 minutes ago from a storm chaser. At this point, we have no confirmed reports of tornadoes in progress. However, we have plenty of visual reports of a low, well-defined wall cloud. So again, two tornado warnings in effect right now in the state of Texas. First is going to be for western Gaines County, including the city of Seminole, for a tornado 9 miles southeast of Hobbs, New Mexico, moving east at 35 miles an hour. This tornado may be near the Gaines County Airport at 2 p.m. Central Time, near the city of Seminole at 2 to 2:05 p.m. This tornado warning also includes Paynes Corner and Gaines County Park. Further south, a tornado warning is currently in effect for areas just northeast of Fort Stockton and northern Pecos County until 1:45 p.m. Central Time. At 1:16 p.m., a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was 8 miles north of Fort Stockton, now about 11 to 12 miles northeast of Fort Stockton, moving east at 35 miles an hour. This is about, let's say at this point, 8 to 10 miles southwest of Baldridge. This is going to be north of Interstate 10, And for those of you wondering, this is about 30 miles southwest of McCamey, and the circulation itself is about 7 miles northeast of Fort Stockton. We have multiple updrafts in this region currently competing with each other to become dominant, so the storm's in a bit of a reorganization phase, but we may end up seeing this shift a little more to the southeast, and that could impact Interstate 10 east of Fort Stockton and west of Bakersfield over the next 30 minutes. Let's go ahead. We'll take a look at some of these other storms popping up in West Texas. We have a severe thunderstorm northwest of Denver City. This thunderstorm is located about 7 miles northwest of Denver City and is moving to the northeast at 25 miles an hour. The potential for at least quarter-size hail, winds of 60 miles an hour. Further to the north, a line of strong to severe thunderstorms capable of producing quarter to ping pong ball size hail. That's currently located from Lehman to Morton to Amherst to just west of Littlefield, northeast to Earth. That's going to be up towards Spring Lake, Hart, all the way up to Dimmitt, Nazareth, and then we have heavy thunderstorms that aren't severe in the hail or wind department, but are producing quite a bit of heavy rainfall. The primary threat for inclement, impactful weather in the Texas Panhandle, in addition to the potential for hail, wind, maybe a few tornadoes, will be threat of flooding. We're going to have quite a bit of heavy rain, and all this heavy rain is going to fall on soils that have been highly saturated by heavy rains over the last several weeks. So, as that occurs, we could see flash flooding either develop or ongoing flooding worsen quickly over the next several hours. So be mindful, we're likely going to see a plethora of flash flood warnings, and that's going to be just as important as the hail, wind, tornado threat. So we're going to be dealing with a multifaceted, impactful weather event today. Let's go ahead and we'll take a look at the severe weather outlook. Let me clean this up a bit. This is the severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. And again, if you're in any color here from 1 to 3, green, yellow, orange, you're in a risk of severe weather this afternoon and this evening. That means the potential for severe thunderstorms capable of producing hail, damaging winds, maybe a few tornadoes. For what it's worth, the strongest storms today that are in supercellular form, we could see giant hail up to the size of or larger than the size of a softball that is 4 inches in diameter. And the potential for damaging straight line winds over 70 miles an hour. In addition, tornado watches are in effect for the Texas Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Western Big Country, and portions of the Western Concho Valley. You may be hearing occasional ding-dongs next to me. You may not if my noise filtering's working out, but what I do have, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 monitors, and that helps me maintain situational awareness. So if I'm looking around or I stop mid-sentence, that's what's going on. And this interesting note from the Weather Service in Lubbock, this is going to be a bit of a weather nerdism, but I'll explain it in a minute. They're noting an increasing rate of pressure falls across portions of the northern Permian Basin and West Texas, which is resulting in surface winds up into the low levels of the atmosphere backing, meaning the winds are becoming more southeasterly to easterly. And what that means is we're seeing an uptick in the amount of storm relative helicity, or the amount of spin and vorticity available for thunderstorms to take advantage of as they move further east into West Texas over the next 1 to 2 hours. What that means in non-weather nerdy terms is the threat for severe weather, including the potential for tornadoes, is increasing as the atmosphere is becoming more supportive of all modes of severe weather across portions of the Permian Basin and West Texas, which does explain why we've got a couple tornado warnings in effect and why we're dealing with severe weather. So again, that's what's going on. Tornado watch until 8 o'clock for the Panhandle, West Texas, Permian Basin, Western Big Country, Western Concho Valley, the Trans-Pecos. Line of thunderstorms capable of producing hail, damaging winds, a few tornadoes beginning to develop now. Well, let me rephrase that. It developed hours ago. It's underway across the western Texas panhandle, West Texas, south into portions of the Permian Basin. Additional thunderstorm development is likely over the next several hours. We're going to have a big old complex of storms move across the panhandle, West Texas, and the Permian Basin later this afternoon into this evening. Further south across southern Permian Basin, eventually into the Concho Valley and northern Edwards Plateau, we're anticipating probably a more scattered nature to the thunderstorms. We're still going to be dealing with cluster eventually, but storms may maintain their individual supercellular characteristics a bit longer, which may help result in a slightly higher tornado potential or giant hail potential later. So the reason we are here, we have 2 tornado warnings in effect right now. Tornado warning number 1 is going to be for northeastern Pecos County in the Permian Basin slash let's just go with that. This is going to be a possible tornado now located well northeast of the city of Fort Stockton. This does not pose a threat to the city of Fort Stockton. If we had a tornado in progress right now, which we haven't had any recent reports of, it would be located about 10 miles northeast of Fort Stockton, moving east at about 25 miles an hour. This storm's been undergoing a reorganization over the last 15 to 20 minutes with multiple updrafts competing with each other, which has helped limit some of the intensification. However, as one of these updrafts eventually takes hold, we're likely going to get a relatively angry supercell. I mean, it's already angry, but it's going to get angrier. And that storm may begin to move more to the due east, maybe even southeast. So those of you on Interstate 10 from east of Fort Stockton to Iran to Ozana need to keep an eye on this storm, and we're expecting additional thunderstorm development through the afternoon and evening hours. A tornado warning in effect for portions of Gaines County in the northern Permian Basin / West Texas. This does include the city of Seminole. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing baseball-sized hail is located on the Texas-New Mexico state line on Highway 62. This thunderstorm did produce a confirmed tornado back in eastern New Mexico south of Hobbs about 25 minutes ago. And we're seeing indications of a shear axis setting up on the leading edge of this supercell. That's what you're looking at here. This is the which way the wind's blowing mode. Wind's moving towards the radar down in Midland. In the green, winds in the red moving away from that radar. And what we have here is a shear axis setting up, which eventually may provide our next area of potential tornado concern. So again, we haven't had any recent reports of tornadoes, which is good, but these thunderstorms are spinning. In addition, the most intense storms this afternoon may be capable of producing softball-sized hail, winds over 75 miles an hour. When we start seeing a cluster of storms become more organized, like we're starting to see in portions of West Texas and the southern panhandle, if that cluster is able to become highly organized over the next several hours into early this evening, this could result in an increasing threat of hurricane-force winds of 75 to 90 miles per hour. Looks like we've just had a flash flood warning issued for pretty much the entirety of the southern Texas panhandle. All right, we're going to have a flash flood warning now. That's going to pop up here in just a moment. You can see that there. This is going to be a flash flood warning pretty much all the way from Hereford to Canyon up to the city of Amarillo. It goes without saying, it has been wetter than the monsoon season over the last 10 days across the panhandle. So as we have heavy storms moving in with more heavy rain, additional flooding, including road flooding, is going to likely occur relatively quickly. So that's what we have going on with that. And again, we're expecting a pretty busy afternoon. Here's the severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center. And again, At this point, we have a tornado watch through 8 p.m. for the Texas Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Western Big Country, and the Western Concho Valley. Storms will be moving. Individual storms will tend to move off initially to the northeast at 20 to 35 miles an hour, but eventually we're going to start seeing storms progress more easterly. And as that occurs, we're going to see more of West Texas, more of the Panhandle, more of the Big Country, Concho Valley, and Eastern Permian Basin under the gun. We'll also end up having to deal, with the potential for new storms firing up, especially in the east or in the Permian Basin. And those storms will also likely be severe. And so we may not be talking about a storm near you because we're going to be focusing on the most intense storms this afternoon and this evening. But you can always keep an eye on the sky with the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app. It includes interactive weather radars, down to the neighborhood forecast, and our live storm chasing video and live severe weather coverage. In fact, I'll make sure that severe weather coverage has been imported into the mobile app and website. And to do so, I have to log into the website, which does have its benefits, being able to log into your own website. But also having a two-factor key code can sometimes be a pain in the butt, but likewise, you don't want stuff getting hacked. I'm sure it would find a way, but you know what? We have a lot of security for that. All right. So I'm Texas Storm Chasers Baldy-in-Chief David Reimer. It is the 2nd of June, 2023. We've got a possible rain-wrapped tornado crossing Highway 62 a few miles east of the New Mexico-Texas state line, east of Hobbs, west of Seminole. So that storm may have a tornado in progress on Highway 62 about 15 to 17 miles, maybe, let's do this, 13 to 15 miles west of Seminole. And this storm is moving east-northeast at 35 miles an hour. We have a tornado warning for north central Pecos County until 1:45, so, 1 minute. I don't know if they're going to reissue that tornado warning, but our main issue for now is definitely going to be a tornado warning in effect for portions of Gaines County. See, this is what happens when I multitask. Northwestern Gaines County until 2:15 p.m. Central Time. A rain-wrapped tornado currently located on Highway 62, about 15 miles west of Seminole. This thunderstorm, in addition to producing a tornado, I just crashed the radar software. It has been a hot minute since I did that. I am proud of myself. In addition to the potential for a rain-wrapped tornado crossing Highway 62 about 15 miles west of Seminole, that storm is also capable of producing baseball to softball size hail. Looks like they are going to put a new tornado warning out for Pecos County. So as the shape files load, you can see this storm east of Fort Stockton has quickly undergone a transformation from that blobby doom thing to a much more visually organized supercell on the how hard it's raining mode. And as that has occurred, we now have a new tornado warning for the thunderstorm moving more to the east, southeast at about 15 miles an hour. So now that this has shifted back to the southeast, this does place Interstate 10 under the gun. Okay, so we have Interstate 10 under a tornado warning east of Fort Stockton, mile markers 266 to 285. So do not travel between Bakersfield and Fort Stockton on Interstate 10. A tornado may be in progress at this time. In addition, this thunderstorm is capable of producing tennis ball to baseball size hail. Now moving pretty much paralleling Interstate 10, frankly, moving towards Bakersfield could be an issue for Iran and Sheffield in the next 1 to 2 hours. Further to the north, we've just received a report of a tornado in progress on Highway 62, about 13 to 14 miles west of Seminole. So at this point, we do have reports of a tornado down in progress approaching or on Highway 62, about 13 to 15 miles west of Seminole. This tornado, which is now confirmed, is currently moving to the east-northeast. However, it needs to be clearly stated that if this thunderstorm ends up taking a turn to the right, this thunderstorm has the potential to directly impact the city of Seminole. This thunderstorm is currently producing a tornado. In addition, baseball to softball size hail. Present course, this would stay northwest of the city of Seminole, but if it turns right, it could be more of a direct threat to the city of Seminole. Let's take a gander out ahead. Let's start talking about folks who may be downstream of this. Outside of Seminole, hopefully this is going to stay south of Seagraves, but on present course, this could be a direct threat to Seagraves by 2:45 p.m. Central Time. And again, this thunderstorm does have a tornado down right now approaching Highway 62, about 13 to 15 miles west of the city of Seminole, moving east-northeast at 35 miles per hour. I'm just taking a gander at other things. So otherwise, we do have severe thunderstorms, currently capable of producing quarter to golf ball sized hail, kind of in a broken line, just east of the Texas-New Mexico state line, all the way up into the Panhandle. One such storm currently located about 8 to 10 miles southwest of Plains. That's moving northeast. We've got a line of strong to severe storms now from Whiteface to Littlefield, Amherst, Olton, Hart. These storms, as a whole, moving east at about 35 miles an hour. The potential for large hail up to the size of golf balls, damaging straight-line winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour. And we are going to keep an eye out for any sort of low-level circulations, but at this point, this is a heavy rain, flooding, hail, and wind threat. Further north in the Texas Panhandle, storms are being more behaved comparatively in the wind-hail department, but we've already got a flash flood warning out for Deaf Smith, Oldham, Potter, and Randall counties in the Panhandle. This does include Hereford, Canyon, Amarillo, Lake Tanglewood. I believe it includes Bushland being just west of Amarillo. And again, flooding is going to be as much of a concern as severe weather today. Across portions of northwest Texas, we're keeping an eye out just in case we see any little spinny or little storms pop up, but at this point, nothing obscene or obnoxious going on there. Back into West Texas, a confirmed tornado approaching Highway 62, 13 to 15 miles west of Seminole. This thunderstorm is moving east-northeast at 35 miles an hour. This thunderstorm has a history of producing tornadoes, and as of 4 minutes ago, had a report of a cone tornado in progress. This is a dangerous situation for those of you in portions of northwestern Gaines County. Those of you west of, or let's just do it this way, those of you in the city of Seminole, west on Highway 62 to the New Mexico state line, those of you on Highway 214 from the city of Seminole to southeast of Denver City, Those of you on Highway 385 from Seminole to south of Seagraves need to be taking your tornado safety precautions. That's going to be lowest floor, center room, away from windows. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. If you are in a site-built sturdy structure, grab some boots and put on a helmet. That's in case, one, you end up having debris. You don't want to walk on debris with tennis shoes or bare feet. Trust me, not fun to have a nail go through your shoe and end up in your foot. Been there, done that. And the helmet is in case of flying debris, greatly reduces the risk of a fatal head injury, which are how many tornado fatalities occur. So again, this tornado warning does include the city of Seagraves. Or excuse me, not Seagraves. Let me be clear on that. This, or not yet at least. Seagraves, you may be under a tornado warning in the next 20 minutes, but this tornado warning currently includes the city of Seminole. Further to the south, we have a thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado. This thunderstorm is wrapping up. Tiding the ticks behind at this point. Now that is a problem. The potential for a tornado now approaching Interstate 10 and Highway 67/385 east of Fort Stockton. This possible, if not likely, tornado 10 miles east of the city of Fort Stockton, approaching Highway 385/67 and Interstate 10. This tornado warning does include Interstate 10 between mile markers 266 on the west and 285 on the east. No travel is currently advised on Interstate 10 between the city of Fort Stockton and Bakersfield. And real quick, I'm going to actually, on one of my monitors, see if I can pull up a TechStock camera and see this. I doubt it. Since this is east of the city of Fort Stockton at this point. Traffic cameras are few and far between. So again, this is going to be east of the city of Fort Stockton by about 10 miles, moving away from the city of Fort Stockton, moving east-southeast at about 15 miles an hour. This could eventually be a threat to the city of Bakersfield, but this thunderstorm, if I load a radar loop here for you, which I'm going to do, has turned from going northeast, is now going southeast. As you can see here, this thing took a hard right turn, as I said it probably would once it organized, and now this thing is more giddy than a... Well, I don't care. You can make up your own idioms. We'll do it that way. But again, this is on Interstate 10 now. First, the tornado threat near Highway 67/385 at Interstate 10, about 10 miles east of the city of Fort Stockton, and is then continuing to move southeast. Now, the good news is, once this moves southeast of Interstate 10, there's not really anything it's going to be hitting for a very long time. But the potential for baseball to softball size hail with this thunderstorm on Interstate 10 between mile markers 266 and 285. So if you have any friends, family traveling on Interstate 10 in the Permian Basin / Northern Edwards Plateau around Fort Stockton, give them a heads up. They do not want to be there right now. And don't go into that storm unless they want softball chunks of ice flying through their windows. And trust me, that's not fun. Been there, done that too. Been there, got the badge. Don't want to do it again. Okay, back to the storm west of Seminole. There's going to be a circulation now probably near or just north of Highway 62, about 13 to 15 miles west of Seminole. Like the storm near Fort Stockton earlier, it looks like we're starting to do a bit of a reorganization. You can see we have a new updraft trying to fire up south of Highway 62. What that may do is that could help disrupt the circulation and the primary thunderstorm, but what that may also do is drag the circulation or develop a new circulation farther to the south of 62 and bring a renewed threat of a possible tornadic circulation impacting Seminole directly. We have multiple reports now of a tornado in progress on Interstate 10 at mile marker 270. So at this point, we now have a confirmed tornado at Interstate 10, very near Highway 385 and 67. That's going to be coming from Storm Chasers and Emergency Management, reporting a rain ramp tornado on Interstate 10 near Highway 385/67. So this storm east of Fort Stockton by 11 to 12 miles now, tornado in progress on or near Interstate 10, mile marker 270. No travel on Interstate 10 between Fort Stockton and Bakersfield, which is well west of Sheffield. In addition to a tornado ongoing now, we have a potential for baseball to softball size hail. Further to the north, we have a possible, if not probable, rain ramp tornado in progress about 13 miles west of Seminole. This is going to be moving east-northeast at 35 miles an hour. But also going to have to wait and watch and see if that storm ends up taking a hard right. If that does, we're going to have bigger problems in Seminole soon. All right, let's take a look west of Lubbock. Got a line of severe storms on Highway 70 from Earth to Olton, all the way back down Highway 385 to Littlefield, Amherst, west of Loveland on 114 to Whiteface. These thunderstorms are all moving east at about 30 to 40 miles an hour, capable of producing winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour, quarter to ping pong ball size hail, very heavy rainfall that will likely cause flooding. Expect the bar ditches to fill up and overflow quickly and result in road flooding. Further north, we have heavy thunderstorms that are mostly behaving themselves in the hail wind department, but producing very heavy rainfall that have the potential to produce flooding. In fact, we already have flash flood warnings in effect for places like Amarillo, Canyon, Lake Tanglewood, and Hereford. I'm trying to let the radar data load. It obviously doesn't want to load because it hates me, and I'm going to throw a mallet at it, but we'll just press this button instead. Let's do this. Here we go. That'll work just fine. You can see we've got these storms moving almost south to north, which is resulting in an extended period of training of heavy rainfall, which unfortunately means that we have quite a bit of flooding potential. So that unfortunately means, one, we could have additional flooding develop. Two, we're probably going to have a bunch of roads closed here at some point during the afternoon and evening. And three, all sorts of problems with people trying to drive into floodwaters, whether intentionally, unintentionally, accidentally, or thinking that their lifted pickup truck can get through it, and then they end up having to get rescued by someone. So again, we are dealing with the potential for severe weather. We're dealing with the potential for flooding. We're dealing with the potential for hail, wind, tornadoes, and flooding. All right, let's see. All right, we've got a report. Tornado continues on Interstate 10 or just south of Interstate 10 near mile marker 270, which is about 13 miles east of Fort Stockton. You can see a well-defined supercell here. This is going to be your inflow notch here. This is where you have your warm, unstable surface winds moving into the thunderstorm. This is going to be your rear flank downdraft, your hook echo. That's where you're going to have winds wrapping around the backside of the circulation. And then here, right around mile marker 270, is where we have multiple reports that a tornado is down in progress just south of the interstate right now. So again, this thunderstorm has a history of producing tornadoes and apparently has one in progress now. This thunderstorm is moving east-southeast at 15 miles an hour. The potential for baseball to softball size hail will follow this tornado and impact Interstate 10 between mile markers 266 and 280. So travel not advised. We now have reports of a large tornado in progress south of Interstate 10 near mile marker 271. So, again, a large, extremely dangerous tornado in progress 12 miles east of the city of Fort Stockton near mile marker 271 from emergency management. This tornado is moving east-southeast, so that should keep it south of the interstate unless we have an occlusion pull the circulation back north. Regardless, nobody and their mama should be on Interstate 10 right now between the city of Fort Stockton and Bakersfield. That's going to be mile markers about 260 on the west, 280 on the east. Tornado, big tornado in progress, and baseball to softball size hail about to pummel the interstate. So again, this thunderstorm moving southeast at 15 to 30 miles an hour. Now, the good news is, once this is south of Interstate 10, it is not going to hit anything for a while in terms of communities. Very, very rural area, plenty of canyons. So that's good in that regard, but we need to get this thing south of Interstate 10 first. And again, we've got a tornado in progress right now, very near Interstate 10, around mile marker 271 to 272, moving southeast at 15 to 30 miles an hour. Further north, we have thunderstorms capable of producing a tornado. West of the city of Seminole, 2 circulations now. First circulation is going to be north of Highway 62. This might be within about 10 miles of Seminole. That's moving east-northeast. Second circulation developing south of Highway 62, probably also moving east-northeast for now. Both these storms could have baseball to softball size hail, winds 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, and the potential for a tornado. If there is a tornado, it is going to be wrapped in more rain and hail than you can see through. So again, tornado warning number 1. 2 possible circulations, each capable of producing a tornado. Softball size hail, winds 60 to 70 miles an hour. Highway 62 in western Gaines County, west of the city of Seminole for now, east of Hobbs, New Mexico. 2. Second storm, large and dangerous tornado in progress, mile marker 272, Interstate 10. This tornado moving southeast at about 15 to 30 miles an hour, capable of producing tornado. Well, let me rephrase that. This is producing a tornado. Multiple reports, visual evidence. We just retweeted pictures on our Twitter account of the tornado in progress. It's a pretty sizable cone tornado moving southeast at about 15 to 30 miles an hour. So again, large tornado in progress, mile marker 272 just south of Interstate 10. This is going to be about 15 miles east of the city of Fort Stockton, moving away from Fort Stockton. It's going to be about 15 miles west of Bakersfield. This tornado warning continues through at least 2:30 p.m. This includes mile markers 266 to 285 on Interstate 10, with a large tornado in progress near mile marker 272 to 273. Further north, thunderstorms capable of producing baseball to softball size hail. Tornadoes, winds 60 to 70 miles an hour, located on Highway 62 west of the city of Seminole. We have 2 supercell updrafts here, each with strong rotation. Rotation number 1, about 3 miles north of Highway 62, approaching Highway 214, northwest of Seminole. Now a large cone to wedge tornado in progress southeast of Fort Stockton. Just got a picture of that, just retweeted that. That's from Chad Casey, who is always there. Chad Casey is probably one of the best storm chasers in this state. He always seems to be at almost every Texas tornado. He does a great job, but we just retweeted his photo. So again, 2 circulations, and that large tornado in progress near mile marker 272 to mile marker 275. Actually reports now of 2 tornadoes in progress, so the Fort Stockton storm is apparently just dropping tornadoes like flies at this point. But back up into portions of Gaines County. This is going to be in West Texas, Northern Permian Basin. 2 supercells, each capable of producing baseball to softball size hail, moving east-northeast at about 30 to 35 miles an hour. Circulation number 1, north of Highway 62, 8 to 10 miles northwest of Seminole, moving towards Highway 214, east-northeast at 35 miles an hour. Circulation number 2, potential for baseball to softball size hail, moving east-northeast at 35 miles an hour. Currently south of Highway 62, about 12 to 15 miles west of Seminole. Boy, the number of pictures coming in on Twitter right now of this tornado near Fort Stockton, east of Fort Stockton. Good gravy. Yeah, that's a rather angry tornado, but the good news is it's a rural area, so hopefully it's not going to find anything to hit. All right, press some buttons here, make sure I've got all my stuff on. And again, we're going to be talking about the most dangerous, impactful storms today. So if we're not talking about a storm near you, I'm sorry, but that's probably good news. But you can keep an eye on the sky with our free interactive weather radar on our website, texasstormchasers.com/radar. We can also, y'all can also keep an eye on the radar with the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app with interactive weather radar, live severe weather coverage, storm chasing video, down to the neighborhood forecasts. Me thinky Jason Cooley's not going to be a happy clam after this. I feel you there, Jason, I do. Always interesting, right? But so again, we have two tornado warnings in effect right now. First tornado warning going to be for a storm in northwestern Gaines County and western Texas. If I could stop drawing on this map, that would be great. This is going to be west of the city of Seminole still. We're dealing with pretty messy supercell storm structure right now. Can we please? Thank you. But nevertheless, the potential for tornadoes, rain-wrapped. Yeah, Jason, I see that. Meteorologist Jason Cooley was just telling me to take a look at this storm between Eunice and Jal, New Mexico. This is going to be moving into portions of the northwestern Permian Basin and western portions of Andrews County here in the next 30 minutes. This storm currently also showing pretty good low-level rotational signature and baseball to softball size hail. So this could be an issue for western Andrews County sooner rather than later. Back down here, we've got a tornado in progress now near mile marker 275 to 277 south of Interstate 10. That's going to be your rotational couplet with a confirmed large tornado. We've got winds moving away from the radar in Midland at about 50, winds moving towards at about 60. So that's a 100 mile per hour gate-to-gate circulation. And again, we do have visual confirmation that a tornado is in progress with this storm. We've got a report of a funnel cloud now on Highway 18 south of Eunice, New Mexico, which is going to be with this storm we were just talking about. So again, in all likelihood, this is going to need a tornado warning very shortly. And this is going to be moving into western Andrews County, a direct threat to Highway 176 on the Texas-New Mexico state line, all the way to probably about 15 miles west of the city of Andrews. So we'll probably have a tornado warning for portions of Andrews County here shortly. Unless this storm takes a hard right, it will remain northwest of the city of Andrews, for those of you in Andrews watching. And I hope the Andrews Fire Department is too. I love their Facebook posts. For those who don't know, and I don't know why you would, I'm a fire buff. So when I'm not doing storm coverage, I'm usually doing fire photography. And that's enough information about Baldy-in-Chief for the moment. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a look at further north. I know we haven't talked about West Texas and the Panhandle in a wee while, and that's because storms up here are not necessarily tornadic, but are capable of producing strong winds, heavy rain, quarter to golf ball size hail. For example, this complex of thunderstorms located from near Levelland to Littlefield to Olden is moving east at about 30 to 35 miles an hour, capable of producing winds of 60 to 70 miles an hour, quarter to ping pong ball size hail, and very heavy rainfall that may cause some flooding. We'll put a storm track on it real quick, mainly because I want to play with that button, and it's always fun to play with the button. Here you go. Assuming I do this correctly, this has a line of storms moving into Plainview at 2:35 p.m. Hale Center about 2:30, Abernathy about 2:40. North sides of Lubbock around Lubbock Airport about 2:50 p.m. Lubbock proper 2:55 to 3 p.m. Wolfworth about 2:50 p.m. Ropesville at 2:41 p.m. Speaking of which, I really hope Ropesville doesn't get hit by a rope tornado. Yeah, I just made one of those dad jokes. You may make fun of me and spite me. Smire at about 2:33 p.m. Loveland, next 5 minutes. Anton about 2:15 to 2:20. And then Lockney about 3 o'clock. Same for Idalou on Highway 82. Moving on east at about 35 miles an hour. As theorized, the Weather Service has just issued a tornado warning. This is going to be for eastern portions of Lea County in New Mexico and northwestern Andrews County in the Permian Basin. This is going to be a tornado warning that does not include the city of Andrews, but does include western Andrews County. You can see here, this does include Highway 176 from the Texas-New Mexico state line, just east of Eunice, New Mexico, east to, well, here, I'll tell you in a second. About 15 miles west of the city of Andrews. I need to check my warning settings. These are being kind of slow today. I'll read the text. This is going to be a tornado warning for southeastern Lea County in New Mexico, northwestern Andrews County, and the northern Permian Basin. At 2:10 p.m. Central Time, a severe stormy capable of producing spinny doom doom was located 10 miles north of Giles Airport or 10 miles south of Eunice. Moving east at 25 miles an hour, this thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado and the potential for tennis ball size hail. It's going to stay over rural areas of western Andrews County. And unless it turns hard right, hopefully it'll stay north of the city of Andrews here in a wee bit. But we're going to have to keep an eye on it. All right, further south, let's take a look at the Fort Stockton storm. That's not Fort Stockton, but we notice new stormy going up southwest of Fort Stockton, or trying to. If that were to develop, that could bring some weather to Fort Stockton in the next 30 to 45 minutes. Severe thunderstorm. History of producing tornadoes now near Interstate 10 and mile marker 277, moving southeast now at about 20 to 25 miles an hour. This is pretty much going to be in the middle of no man's land between, well, southwest of Bakersfield, southeast of Fort Stockton. There is literally nothing really out here besides some oil rigs and maybe some homesteads. But in terms of communities and towns, it is more desolate than the hair on top of my head. Nevertheless, if you're one of the 20 people out there, 1, please don't get hit by the tornado. 2, if for some reason you are going to get hit by the tornado, please take shelter. And 3, don't stand on your front porch while the tornado is hitting you. That's just dumb. All right. All right. So let's see what the Lubbock Weather Service is saying. Surface pressure falls continue to increase across areas of southwest of a hail center to Snyder Line. Wind speeds out of the southeast have increased to 25 miles an hour around Brownfield. And wind speeds continuing to increase. Wellman to Tahoka to Loveland to Plainview at the highest severe weather risk. Great, meso-low. Okay, so for non-weather weenies, what they're saying is, here, I'll draw it on my super duper awesome blossom, hey, I'm awesome map. In fact, I think I can put winds on here. Let me see, I might be able to actually do that. Let's see if I actually have a use for this, or if I just break everything. I might just break everything. Or it's not even going to load. There we go. So here, what I've got on the screen now, you can barely see them, but wind barbs. So I'm just going to draw the wind direction. You can see, when I say winds are backing, they're becoming more southeasterly. And that is helping to increase the amount of low-level wind shear available to these thunderstorms. And as long as these thunderstorms maintain a semi-discrete supercellular storm mode, we're going to have to deal with the potential for big hail, damaging winds, tornadoes. Obviously, we've had multiple tornadoes already from the storm west of Seminole and the storm southeast of Fort Stockton, and we're probably about to have a tornado with this thunderstorm northeast of Jal, New Mexico, moving towards western Andrews County. So one, radar has detected tornadoes, radar indicated rotation, and two, we've had multiple tornadoes already visually observed with storms today. So, the first storms of the day are going to tell a story of how the day can play out. And given the fact our first two tornadic storms have been dropping tornadoes left and right, clearly we are in an environment that is supportive of tornado genesis and thus need to keep a very heightened awareness of all these thunderstorms. Now, does that mean every storm out here is going to be dropping tornadoes left and right? No. But clearly we're in an environment that is supportive of tornado genesis, given the fact we've already had multiple tornadoes out here. In fact, this is probably going to be the most active early June tornado day we've seen in the Permian Basin and West Texas in years, based on what we've already seen. Not that that's a difficult achievement to, do, since, we've been in drought for years. But, alas, yeah. All right, so while we are here, let's go ahead, zoom out to the state. Let's see what we have going on statewide. Now, clearly, the eastern 75% of Texas, y'all have nothing going on. Just like days where we're talking about tornadoes in northeast Texas, the Arklatex, East Texas, and the Brazos Valley, and the rest of the state is like, what the heck are we talking about? This is a day where we're talking about the Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, the Northern Edwards Plateau, the Western Concho Valley, Western Big Country. The rest of the state, Wichita Falls, east of a line from Wichita Falls, Abilene, to, at this point, Eagle Pass, everyone east, there is nothing going on. It is warm, it is humid, it may be a bit windy, you may have some afternoon towering bubblies popping up from all that humidity and the diurnal heating cycle, but there is nothing going on severe weather-wise. Same thing goes if you were in the borderland, if you were down right now, at least in Big Bend or the Trans-Pecos, y'all can probably see the thunderstorms off to your east, but clearly y'all have nothing going on either. In fact, if I were to stop this radar loop and turn on surface temperatures, I'm pretty sure we'd see it's well up into the 80s and 90s in most areas. Because, well, it is early June, right? So, yeah, there you go. You've got 90s. If I switched over to heat index, we got heat index values around about 5 degrees above the ambient air temperature, which, honestly, isn't too bad since, last summer, the summer of hell. But again, that's what we have going on right now. Real quick, let's take a look at the high-res rapid refresh model. And then after that, if Mr. Cooley wants to do a wee bit of coverage, I will be happy to let him do so. But for now, we're going to take a look at the high-res rapid refresh model and see if this model has any idea what's going on right now, because it did not earlier. So, before we do anything, we're going to look at what this model shows at 2 p.m. Central Time. So, obviously, this model's not doing well right now. It has none of these storms in southeastern New Mexico, the northern Permian Basin, West Texas. If I turned on the radar right now, you could see we have storms. Obviously, the model does not show that. The model has the Permian, or the Fort Stockton supercell. It has the stuff in the Panhandle, but it does not have the stuff in West Texas. So, we're not going to use that model, because that model, garbage data coming in, means garbage data coming out. So, we're going to actually see if the 3-kilometer North American model has any idea what's going on. I mean, no, because we don't have a giant squall line in East Texas and Western Oklahoma. So, I'm not going to show you model data because apparently the models are about as useless as a wig on top of my head right now. Remember, weather models are not infallible. You have to know their caveats, what they're good at, and what they're not good at. And yes, many people can simply go onto a weather model website, look at a weather model, and be like, oh, cool, I can go chase this right here, blah, blah, blah. But no, there's actual science that goes into this. And weather models are not infallible. If they were perfect, we wouldn't be here talking to you right now because they'd be doing all the stuff for us, but they don't. That's where experience and intuition comes into play. And that's why we're here. You know, I'm not a meteorologist. Jason Cooley's a meteorologist. But we've been doing this for almost 15 years now. Oh, let's see. We got a mesoscale discussion. So again, what we're dealing with over the last couple hours, we've had thunderstorms erupt across the western Texas Panhandle, portions of West Texas, more isolated down into the southern Permian Basin, moving into the eastern Big Bend. Most thunderstorms, individual storms at least in West Texas, are moving to the east, about 25 to 35 miles an hour. Storms in the Panhandle are generally moving more north-northeast right now, but progressing east. And then we've got a few storms in far southeastern New Mexico, down into the southern Permian Basin that are moving more east or even southeast. Strongest storms right now are across the western Permian Basin, capable of baseball to softball size hail, winds 70 miles an hour, and tornadoes. The thunderstorms in West Texas and the Texas Panhandle, the strongest of which are currently capable of quarter to ping pong ball size hail. Winds of 70 miles an hour, flooding rainfall that's going to cause flooding to develop pretty quickly. This is going to continue for several hours yet as this whole cluster of storms continues to move to the east. We may see additional supercells develop across portions of the Permian Basin, far southeastern New Mexico, which would then move into the Permian Basin and parts of West Texas, and eventually storms will be making their way into portions of the Concho Valley, the Big Country in northwest Texas, and the remainder of the Panhandle this evening. You can also see storms firing up on a residual outflow boundary across western portions of Oklahoma into the far southeastern Texas Panhandle. We're going to have to keep an eye on those storms too for the threat for some flooding, maybe some hail and strong winds. So, let's make sure I'm not missing anything. And Jason, if you are good to go, just give me a thumbs up. And I'll transfer it to you in just a second. So, okay. What we're going to do now is meteorologist Jason Cooley is going to take over for a few minutes while I gander over some data and drink abhorrent amounts of caffeine to become even more humorous and giggly during live severe weather coverage. But we'll be keeping an eye on things here and hope you'll do the same. Remember, you can always keep an eye on the sky with the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app, interactive weather radar. And with that, let's hand it on over to meteorologist Jason Cooley. Yeah, I can hear Jason. Jason just may not be able to. I can hear Jason, but Jason may not be able to hear people. Hold on. There we go. All right. They can hear you now.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. Looks like we have it. All right, sound check sounds good. All right, so thanks for joining me. Giving David Reimer, Baldy-in-Chief, a quick little break. I'm meteorologist Jason Cooley with Texas Storm Chasers. I appreciate you watching this live weather coverage for the state of Texas this afternoon. Things got going rather early. I know a lot of you folks are actually probably still at work or still busy, not on social media, so that's probably why this may come to a surprise for many of you, but we have 2 active tornado warnings now in the state of Texas, with numerous other severe warnings and even flash flood warnings. So we're going to start with our greatest hazards first. That would be our tornado warnings. That would be down in southwest Texas in the Permian Basin over numerous oil fields. So let's go ahead and dive in. Our first storm we're going to take a look at is down here along the Interstate 10. That is now east of Fort Stockton, Texas. This had tornadoes reported. I could not tell you if there's still a tornado on the ground because there are not really any roads there. But let's go ahead and take a look at which way the wind is blowing. And we do see plenty of rotation going on here. Let's change the product here, and I bet you there's still probably an active tornado going on now south of Interstate 10, southeast of Fort Stockton. Again, the population here is a dozen or two, couple dozen, so nobody really out here. Maybe some travelers would probably be mostly chasers in this box at this point. Now this storm is moving southeast, so again it's going to be clear of Interstate 10, minus a little bit of hail activity still likely on the interstate. Back to reflectivity. And yeah, definitely a hail core right over the interstate. However, a tornado producing part of the storm here south of the interstate and continue to move southeast, of course, away from Interstate 10. So that is good news. So folks in the path of this storm, not many folks. Okay, now this is going to be moving southwest to south of Sheffield over the next hour or two. So again, very low population, so that is good news. Maybe some cross traffic here on the very small county roads, but that is not going to be a major issue, I'll tell you that right now. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at our other tornado warned storm, and that is going to be out west of Franklin City, crossing the New Mexico-Texas border right now. We're going to go to multi-panel view here, give you a look here. That's our tornado warned supercell literally on the New Mexico-Texas border, with the most concerning part of the storm now on the Texas side. We have the red, oh that's terrible. We have red indicating our inflow being pulled in on velocity, and our green indicating rear flank downdraft punching around the backside of the storm with hail, heavy rain, lots of lightning to boot. This rotation not super tight, but there was a funnel cloud reported at 2:07 20 minutes ago, and this storm is capable of producing a tornado at any moment. Folks west of Franklin City, keep your eye on this storm. Franklin City, I don't really know what that is. Maybe a small village there. Haven't even heard of that town, quite frankly, but that storm is moving right toward it. So folks in the path of this storm, including Franklin City, you're going to have hail, damaging hail, potentially significant destructive hail, and then straight line winds, and then possibly a tornado. Now this tornado has not fully formed yet. We had a funnel cloud 20 minutes ago. Does not look like this tornado is fully formed. We have not super tight couplet there, but we do have a little bit of gate-to-gate shear, just not super intense, maybe wrapping up into the main part of this hail core. So folks are asking about other places such as Abilene. You're way out east of this stuff. You have nothing to be concerned about right now, just to cover that. Folks in Big Spring, you've got a couple hours till you need to worry about any of these storms along and near the dry line. That's going to be well west of Andrews still, so even Andrews probably have folks in Andrews. Now, you're not in the path of this tornado warned storm, Andrews, unless the storm turns more to the right. But right now we're on a trajectory that gives us storm to the north of Andrews, okay, a larger city out here. So folks in Odessa and Midland, also nothing imminent, no storms in your path of egress. We're watching a couple little blips out here. Let's switch back to one panel. Watching a couple little blips maybe popping up on the dry line, but this is absolutely nothing yet. We'll just watch the trends here. But our main two storms again going to be east of Fort Stockton down here in the Southern Permian Basin, approaching the Edwards Plateau, and then this storm out west of Andrews again might have actually shifted a little more to the right. So heads up, Andrews, this storm may go just to the north, but if it turns, you are going to get in on some damaging hail to destructive hail strong straight line winds, and possibly a tornado spinning up. Again, we don't have a report of a tornado at this time, but we are looking at some broad rotation, not super intense, but still persistent rotation. Folks in these tornado warnings need to get in their safe shelters, your storm tornado shelters, site-built structure, away from windows, innermost part of your structure, lowest part of the house or building. Again, which way the wind is blowing. We've seen this rotational couplet still trying to build. It's trying to organize still, so this storm could finally put down a tornado soon. Had a report of a funnel 26 minutes ago. However, we don't have indications that is on the ground right now. 10-4, David, thank you. We have other severe thunderstorm warnings. This thunderstorm north of Seminole, luckily just barely missing the city of Seminole, Texas, minus a little bit of hail coming in on the west side. But the main structure of the storm is north of Seminole. This has a history of producing tornadoes, and at this moment is still rotating. However, the tornado warning had been dropped. Again, which way is the wind blowing? We see very, very broad rotation, still spinning, but that spin is very broad, not very tight. When it gets tightened up and intensifies, gate-to-gate couplet wind shear, that is when we have likely a tornado in progress. So that storm, again, not tornado warning, it is severe warning for large damaging hail and damaging wind. Would not be surprised if this comes over into flood-prone areas over the past few days. This is just inundated with flooding north of La Mesa, near Brownfield to Adair. Lots of flooding yesterday morning. This is going to go right into that area once again. So flash flooding going to be an additional life-threatening hazard with this storm. We pray that nobody is going to be stuck in flash flooding, because we saw plenty of that yesterday, and it was just not a pleasant situation, even though there weren't any casualties that I've heard. A lot of stranded vehicles, a lot of swift water rescues. And that goes for the Texas Panhandle as well. Let's go ahead and zoom out. We got quite a wind bag here now. Now that we're shifting our focus up toward the north, we have quite a wind bag just by the looks of velocity. This straight line wind coming right toward the Lubbock radar. So these are northwesterly winds in an MCS, or a mesoscale convective system, kind of like a Boeing segment, squall line, if you will. Let's go ahead and look at reflectivity. And we see quite a messy looking storm cluster, kind of a squall line bowing out. So the straight line winds, no doubt, coming right toward Abernathy, shallow water, the Interstate 27. Y'all are probably seeing shelf cloud along the leading edge of the storm. Folks between Lubbock and Tulia probably looking right at a shelf cloud to the west, with strong to severe northwesterly winds coming right toward you. Let's go ahead and probe these wind speeds, and again, these are winds coming toward the radar out of the northwest, and as of this probe, we do have 35 to 45 mile per hour winds, but that is radar indicated. We don't know what's happening right at the surface. Let's go ahead and change back to reflectivity. We do have little bits of hail core, spotty little hail cores here, so be mindful of that too. Watch that on radar. You can access radar for free on our Texas Storm Chasers website and free mobile app. And again, there are two types of radar on our mobile app. Some people are a radar number 1 type person, and some people are a radar number 2 type person. So again, you have two different interfaces for live weather radar. If you're using our mobile app, down at the bottom there is a radar tab, and that is your radar number 1. Some people might like that one, some people may not. Make sure you go over to and more on the bottom right and find the second radar option, and you might enjoy that radar screen more than the other one, vice versa. So again, that's just a heads up. folks that are on the go that want to track these storms on their phone, but for free, but with good quality data and temperature readings, go ahead and check out our free mobile app on Google Play and Apple Store. All right, so we still have 2 tornado warned storms. These tornado warned storms down here in the Permian Basin, this one just got handed to us from New Mexico, and that is going to be west of Andrews. And it looks like it had turned. If you notice that last couple scans, it organizes and it turns more to the east. So more of an easterly track with this storm, unfortunately, for the town of Andrews. You're downwind of this thing, so this may make a beeline just to the north or right toward Andrews with damaging destructive hail and possibility of a spin-up tornado. Let's go ahead and look at which way the wind is blowing once again. Our couplet on velocity still kind of festering, organizing, not super tight, not indicating a tornado right now, but again, 30 minutes ago, a funnel cloud was reported on the New Mexico side of the border. Now, we don't have any new reports, but looking at radar, this thing is still very intense and indicative of producing a tornado at any time, just based off of radar presentation. And tornado warning still in effect, and this is for 23 more minutes. Folks in, this is what? Andrews County. So Andrews County, folks in Andrews proper need to be mindful of this storm, making a beeline almost right toward Andrews, if not just barely north of Andrews now, with destructive hail at least. Dangerous, possibly flash flooding, frequent lightning, and a spin-up tornado possible. We're going to switch back down to our Fort Stockton storm, which no longer anywhere near Fort Stockton, as well east of Fort Stockton. Hey, you're home early. Cool. I have a tornado warned storm east of Fort Stockton. I'm live on TSC. And this couplet is now south of Interstate 10. Well south of Interstate 10, so no issues for travelers on Interstate 10. That's good news. This population very, very low, tracking southeast. Not going to hit any big population centers anytime soon. It's down in the southern Permian Basin, southeast of Fort Stockton. So Fort Stockton and the Interstate 10, you're clear of this storm. So not going to spend a lot of time talking about this storm. It's basically all for the chasers now. Not many local population actually going to be affected by that one. Back to our tornado warned storm west of Andrews. Again, folks in Andrews need to watch out. You're not in a tornado warning right now. He literally just sat up and started to make a noise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he just sat up.
Do I need to get him?
Yeah, he's been napping for an hour. Alright, so inflow, again, this couplet is not super tight, but we have inflow indicated on the reds and velocity, and greens indicated here coming toward the radar, and that is rear flank downdraft. And when these two get really close together, that is when they like to produce a tornado. That does not look to have happened yet, but it could happen soon, if not already. Alright. So I can turn the baby monitor off. Yeah, wife got home in, over an hour early. The door started opening and I almost had to grab a baseball bat. I'm just kidding. Let's look at our panhandle. We haven't forgotten about you folks in the panhandle. Your severe risk is mainly the sporadic hail and wind variety and flash flooding. The flash flooding is literally the most life-threatening severe weather hazard based off of pure statistics. We have an extreme flash flooding situation going on now. I might have used extreme a little too ambitiously there. See, I don't have flooding reports here, but we are under a flash flood warning from Hereford all the way to Amarillo, including Lake Tanglewood, Canyon, Bishop Hills, Bushland, north of Happy, all the way out to almost Panhandle. We even have, I mean, I'm just looking at velocity here. We have downdraft signature. I just wanted to point that out. Microburst signature. We're going to have to look at this microburst here out east of Amarillo. But again, flash flooding looking pretty wild. I don't want to say extreme because extreme might be reserved for more like, Hurricane Harvey stuff. I don't know. But serious. This is a serious situation. Flash flooding with ongoing convection in the last 2 weeks with monsoonal flow just day after day with thunderstorms out here. Also, flash flood warning up in Cactus and Sunray, Texas, up in the northern panhandle. A severe thunderstorm warning for some gusty winds and sporadic hail still in effect for Dalhart up into the Oklahoma panhandle. But again, our big issue is going to be flash flooding, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more flash flooding warnings popping up over the afternoon and evening. This is, again, very serious situation, not to be taken lightly. Again, if you're traveling here, be extremely mindful of flooded roads. Don't drive into flooded roads. Turn around, don't drown. Did mention that we had a microburst here north of Interstate 40. This microburst is just barely east of the radar. We have very good radar data here. And this little microburst might trip a severe thunderstorm warning. We have winds moving toward the radar right here and away from the radar right here. So the plane of the microburst is right here with winds blasting toward the radar toward the west, and then blasting away from the radar over to the east. So this little thunderstorm north of I-40 east of Amarillo showing a classic microburst signature. So a severe warning definitely going to have to be issued for that, I'm sure. Go ahead and take a look at, see what the wind values are here. David, I'll probably give it back to you here in just a couple minutes as the kiddos waking up from the nap. We have 40 mile per hour winds indicated on velocity, headed right at the radar with this microburst signature. So there you go. That's what a microburst looks like on radar. And that is out east of Amarillo, storm moving toward perhaps Panhandle, but again, not much out here between Amarillo and Panhandle for it to necessarily affect people along the US 60, I believe, corridor. Just be mindful. Very gusty winds, strong winds, possibly severe winds there with that microburst. Yeah, I'm going to give it back to David in just a minute. And in fact, I will do a thumbs up when I am completely done and ready for David to switch back. I just want to touch back to give it a good segue. We still have 2 tornado warnings in the Permian Basin. These tornado warning storms have a history of producing tornadoes and or funnel clouds. Again, we have one southeast of Fort Stockton still with quite a hail core, even a hail spike. Again, I won't talk about what a hail spike is because we have to do coverage. This is not necessarily an educational lecture, but we have radar indicated very large to destructive hail in this storm with quite a tornadic signature as well. Again, this is not going to be hitting a whole lot of anything except for maybe wildlife, mesas, hills, bushes, trees, chasers, but reflectivity and velocity still indicate the likelihood of a tornado, and then extremely damaging hail. And then a tornado warning still persists out in western Andrews County in Texas. Folks near Andrews do need to be mindful of that. So thank you for continuing to watch Texas Storm Chasers live coverage. I'm meteorologist Jason Cooley with Texas Storm Chasers, and I'm going to give it right back to you, David. So again, thank you very much. Make sure you stay tuned with us.
All right, thank you, Jason, for that break. That was meteorologist Jason Cooley, the smart one among us. I'm just Baldy-in-Chief David Reimer, and yes, we are keeping an eye on multiple strong to severe storms ongoing across portions of the Texas Panhandle. West Texas and eastern sections of the Big Bend / Permian Basin / southeastern New Mexico. We're dealing with at this point are many thunderstorms. Only some of them are severe in the sense of hail, wind, tornadoes, but we're also dealing with the potential for very heavy rainfall to cause flash flooding. Speaking of which, let's take a look at these storms across portions of the Panhandle in West Texas before we take a look at the severe weather side of things. You can see we've got plenty of heavy rain and thunderstorms ongoing, and these aren't necessarily moving all that quickly, especially across the Panhandle. You can see we've got storms moving almost more north-northeast and kind of training over the same areas. And what that's allowing these storms to do is drop quite a bit of heavy rainfall over areas that have already seen pretty much more rain in the last 10 days than we saw most of the last year combined. So that is going to result in a pretty substantial threat for flooding to develop or redevelop in several regions. In fact, the blue boxes you see popping up, those are flash flood warnings. That includes places like Hereford, Bushland, Canyon, Amarillo, areas of 287 just north of Dumas at this point. And those will not be the only flash flood warnings we see issued this afternoon through this evening. So again, flooding is a big concern with storms today and tonight, even from storms that may not be dropping big hail, big wind, or tornadoes. However, speaking of stormy mischief, let's take a look from north to south. We've got a line of storms capable of producing 50 to 60 mile an hour wind gusts from near Hell Center to Abernathy to Shallowater to Smire, back to Loveland, Whiteface, up 84 to Anton, Littlefield, and then again Smear, Loveland, Whiteface, Morin on 114 West. In addition to the potential for some quarter-sized hail, 50 to 60, maybe 70 mile an hour winds, these storms could also be producing flooding thanks to the very heavy rainfall rates. Heading back further to the south, we've got a thunderstorm capable of producing quarter to golf ball size hail. This is going to be northeast of Plains. This thunderstorm generally moving off to the north. All right, hail markers. Why you no show? Because you hate me. That explains it. Further to the south, we've got severe thunderstorms that are more rambunctious in the hail department. We've got one such storm currently north of Seminole on 385, south of Seagraves. This previously tornado-warned storm is no longer showing any indications of being tornadic. Pretty good outflow wind signature, in fact, on the leading edge of the precipitation and hail core here. You can see that on this shear axis. These are all outflow winds, could be over 60 miles an hour in spots, so this thunderstorms pushing out quite a bit of outflow wind now. In addition, radar is estimating there could be hail larger than the size of tennis balls. So wind-driven hail, not an enjoyable experience. This thunderstorm on Highway 176 west of Andrews we were talking about a bit earlier. As Jason said, the storm has turned more to the east. So this is going to bring the threat for severe weather from this thunderstorm into portions of Andrews over the next 1 hour. Specifically, we have a tornado warning for western Andrews County until 3 p.m., so about another 12 minutes. And this storm is currently located about 15 miles southeast of Eunice, New Mexico, or about 17 miles west of the city of Andrews. Now, the good news is, with this storm, we've actually seen a downtrend in the overall rotational signatures. This thing's kind of also starting to look more outflowy. And if you watched the Texas Weather Roundup this morning, or the briefing I gave when this live coverage started a bit earlier, we're expecting thunderstorms to grow upscale pretty quickly this afternoon into a liner cluster. And as that occurs, we're going to see the threat for giant hail decrease, the threat for damaging winds increase, in addition to the potential for flooding rainfall. That's for these storms in West Texas and the Panhandle, and that appears to be underway now. Further to the south, we've got more isolated activity across the eastern Big Bend and the southeastern Permian Basin. These isolated storms are specifically at this point the isolated supercell southeast of the city of Fort Stockton, has a history of producing multiple tornadoes, but is also now literally in the middle of nowhere. This storm with a tornado is now 25 miles southeast of Fort Stockton, moving southeast to 15 miles an hour. This storm is not going to be hitting much. Obviously, if you live out there, it's going to hit you, but there's no towns or communities. The hail core with this storm is now south of Interstate 10. There's still plenty of heavy rain, plenty of strong winds, but the hail core itself is south of Interstate 10. The tornado is south of Interstate 10. Interstate 10 proper, outside of some hail probably covering the highway along with heavy rainfall and ponding, most likely Interstate 10, you'll be good to go here in the next 30 minutes in terms of there actively being a tornado or hail threat on the interstate. There are going to be more storms later. There may be. But for now, that storm is literally in a very low population or no population area. So we'll let that stay with the storm chasers who want to drive through canyon roads and find themselves stuck out in the middle of nowhere. But for us and the purpose of coverage, we're going to keep an eye on these storms. We've got one severe storm about 15 miles west of Andrews. That could have golf ball to tennis ball size hail as it moves east at about 25 miles an hour. We have a severe thunderstorm northeast of the city of Seminole. This storm could have golf ball size hail, winds of 60 miles an hour as it moves east-northeast at about 25 miles an hour. And then we have other thunderstorms further north in West Texas that are not as organized but still may have pockets of nickel to quarter size hail, winds of 50 to 60 miles an hour, and very heavy rainfall. Honestly, the biggest threat out of these storms north of Highway 380 at this point is going to be the flooding. Potential for very heavy rainfall to cause flooding. For example, the city of Lubbock. You may have issues with flooding in the next hour. All the way up Interstate 27, the city of Amarillo. Potential for some of these storms to have nickel to quarter size hail, winds of 60 to maybe 65 miles an hour in a couple spots. The potential for very heavy rainfall to cause flooding. Same thing goes all the way up into the northern Texas panhandle. These storms, some of them have produced winds over 60 miles an hour, which will kick up dust if the dust hasn't turned to mud by now, and heavy rainfall that could cause flooding. Flash flood warning for Cactus, just north of Dumas on 287. Flash flood warning for the city of Amarillo, Canyon, Hereford, Bushland. We have a flash flood warning west of Loveland around Morton on 125 and 114. And again, a few severe storms with hail, wind, even the potential for a few tornadoes, now 25 miles southeast of Fort Stockton and about 15 miles west of Andrews. But as a whole, we definitely seem to be calming down a bit compared to 30 to 45 minutes ago when we had tornadoes on Interstate 10 about 12 miles east of Fort Stockton, of which there are plenty of pictures and photos and videos we've been retweeting all for the last hour. Let's see if the 18 Zulu her's out. And it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the high-res rapid refresh model. I talked about earlier how the model wasn't doing well, but this model is run every hour. So every hour we get a new model run. It's one of these short-term high-res weather model runs. This is a new run. What we're going to do is I'm going to look here at 3 o'clock. Now, that is a much better representation of what we have going on right now compared to the run from an hour ago. So now I feel comfortable showing you what this model is showing for output over the next several hours to give you an idea of what may happen, since it didn't have complete garbage data going into it. And my nose is itching. That might be a symptom. I need to lessen the caffeine. So we're looking at 3 p.m. off the high-res rapid refresh. And again, this model isn't going to be perfect, but it can at least provide a general idea of when storms may be in your neck of the road. Neck of the road? Oh, good golly, sweet Molly. Your neck of the forest, your bend, whatever. Pick your idiom, because apparently I'm incapable of doing so. All right, so here's 5 o'clock. You can see we've got showers and storms. Still, Panhandle, West Texas, Lubbock is getting clobbered. Sorry, Lubbock. And scattered supercells down into the southwestern Concho Valley, southeastern Permian Basin, far northwestern Edwards Plateau. And we also have a few severe storms firing up in northern Mexico. That's going to be important to watch, as those could move into Texas later this evening. All right, let's go to 7 o'clock. Here's 7 o'clock. You can see we've still got a few supercells in the northern Edwards Plateau / southern Concho Valley. Still dealing with storms across portions of the eastern Texas Panhandle and West Texas. But wait, guess what? Here's round 1. We have a second round of storms popping up in eastern New Mexico and West Texas. That's round 2. That's going to bring more heavy rain, maybe some strong winds and hail to portions of the Panhandle later this evening. Here is 9 o'clock Central Time. You can see we still got rain and storms across West Texas, moving into the western Big Country, Northwest Texas. I will admit they don't look as organized at this point, and that may be the right scenario. But we could still have some storms producing 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, maybe some quarter to ping pong ball to golf ball size hail, and heavy rainfall with the potential for flooding. Further to the south at 9 p.m., and portions of the Concho Valley, Edwards Plateau. Now, this is a problem. Those storms in northern Mexico, yeah, now they're moving into the Edwards Plateau as intense supercells. And let me tell you, if this is right, those are going to be dropping big hail. Like, we're talking baseball to softball size hail, damaging straight line winds, heavy rainfall, maybe even a low tornado threat. I don't think as high, the tornado threat will be as high as we saw earlier this afternoon. Probably, but nevertheless, we're going to need to keep an eye on it. In fact, real quick, I'm going to look at a different screen just to do a little, well, I said the tornado threat might not be as high. That may be wrong. Pretty good low-level wind shear, so actually, these storms may have a bit of a tornado threat with them in addition to giant hail, baseball to softball, and strong damaging winds and localized flooding. So by 9 o'clock, the highest severe weather threat may actually be here in the northern Edwards Plateau around Del Rio, with storms still further north capable of producing some hail, strong winds, and heavy rainfall and flooding. Here is 11 p.m. Central Time. Storms in northwest Texas weakening, with the heaviest storms now in western Oklahoma, with some strong winds, maybe some pocket change size hail, flooding rain. Still have some rain ongoing in the Panhandle, West Texas. And then we've got nasty supercells moving into the southwestern hill country from the northern Edwards Plateau. But if this model holds true to data that we looked at this morning, these should weaken pretty quickly as they approach I-35. And to some extent, they do. Here's 1 a.m. You can see we've got storms in San Antonio, back west, along Highway 90 to Uvalde to Del Rio, but much less intense looking than a couple hours prior. Still could have heavy rainfall, could cause some localized flooding, heavy rain, maybe some dime to nickel to quarter size hail. And then farther north, we've actually got some storms still going on in northwest Texas, up into western and central Oklahoma, and West Texas. Some of those could still have some pocket change size hail, but the overall severe risk much lower. Localized heavy rain with some flooding possible. 3 a.m. You can actually see this model's trying to pop a few storms up in Texoma and North Texas at 3 a.m. Saturday. For example, a little storm, maybe some hail, over Frisco. Is that going to happen? I'm not going to guarantee that, but we'll watch for it, especially as we see that outflow from these storms flying east, surge on east. It's certainly not impossible for a few storms to pop up in North Texas and Texoma tonight. And then you can see further south, the storms across the hill country, south central Texas have all but dissipated. Here is 5 a.m. Isolated to spotty showers and storms still possible across portions of North Texas, Northeast Texas, and then the activity across South Texas is dead. 7 a.m., here you go. For all intents and purposes, severe weather threats done. We might have a few showers and storms still ongoing, but by this point, I am going to be asleep. So Mama Nature, yeah, that's it. So Mama Nature better be chilling by this point, because I do not want to still be up at 7 a.m. having to babysit storms. So, let's switch back to the current view. And this is what everything looks like right now. I'll turn off those cell tracks. Over the last couple hours, you could see we've had storms fire up and become numerous across the Panhandle, West Texas, down into portions of the Permian Basin. We've had multiple tornadoes southeast of Fort Stockton. We had at least a couple tornadoes south of Hobbs, New Mexico to west of Seminole earlier. That storm is no longer tornadic. And at this point, the only tornado warning in a somewhat of a populated area we're keeping an eye on, well, is gone because it's 3 o'clock. So that tornado warning is gone. And the only other storm that currently has a tornado with it is this thunderstorm in the middle of no man's land, now about 30 miles southeast of Fort Stockton in Pecos County. This is going to be about 20 miles southwest of Bakersfield, although there's a pretty nasty hail core about 6 miles south of Bakersfield right now. This storm moving southeast at 15 to 20 miles an hour. No man's land, and it's going to stay there for quite a while. Let's see if we can see on satellite any storms popping up in northern Mexico. And at this point, I'm going to switch to a different product that actually shows. We don't have any organized storms yet in northern Mexico that would be a threat to Texas. We're going to have to keep an eye on that over the next few hours as we may, and then those storms could be a direct threat to the Edwards Plateau. But otherwise, for the next several hours, the potential for strong winds, hail, maybe a tornado out of the most intense storms in the Panhandle, West Texas, the Permian Basin, and then later this evening, the Edwards Plateau, perhaps the Western Hill Country, could also be getting in on the threat of severe weather. But seeing as we are, for all intent and purposes, down to no tornado warnings in populated areas, just dealing with a lot of rain, a lot of storms, some of which have some hail and strong winds, we're going to go ahead and take a break from the live severe weather coverage for now, but we're going to be here all day and all evening. We'll be posting video updates at least once an hour, and if we have any new severe weather issues, significant severe weather issues moving into populated areas, I'm mainly talking about the fact this storm southeast of Fort Stockton's in no man's land, we will be back, and I would not be surprised at all if we're doing more severe weather coverage a bit later on today, but for now, we're going to take a break. So you can keep an eye on the sky with the free Texas Storm Chasers Interactive Weather Radar on our website, and by utilizing the free Texas Storm Chasers mobile app, where we have local weather forecasts, interactive weather radars, severe weather coverage as necessary, storm chasing videos, and all that. So for now, we're going to take a bit of a break, and we'll be posting updates throughout the afternoon and evening. And if we need to come back and do more severe weather coverage, we will. Make sure you all hit that subscribe button if you're watching us on Twitch, YouTube. Hit that thumbs up on YouTube and Twitch, and, you know, all the... I'm not going to give you the social media subscribe garbage. Y'all know what to do. Hit the thumbs up, hit the big subscribe button, hit the bell, hit whatever you have to on whatever social media network you're watching. I mean, we're streaming on Facebook, the YouTubes, the Twitter, the Twitch, the TikTok. I probably missed one, but you know what? That's okay. I'm old. So with that being said, we'll have a weather video update posted by 3:30 on the social media channels, and we'll be here keeping y'all updated throughout the day. Y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you here again in a bit.